Welcome to EE380. This is November 2nd, and our speaker is Ed Selker, who's going to talk to us about a new company he is putting together called Alphy.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm the CTO of Alphy, but more importantly, I've always been interested in how people communicate using AI and user interface for those purposes. And I've run labs at MIT and CMU on considerate systems, as I call them. And today I'm going to talk as much as about considerate systems and my research as I am probably going to be about Alphy. You see on the left of this screen some of the people that are involved with this company, and our goal is to advance women. I will play about, just a couple seconds.
Alphy is a revolutionary app designed for advancing women. It's about career again, deeper connections and belonging, and better communication.
So the better communication is mostly what this Alphy Reflect thing that I'm so excited about is about. And we use AI throughout the system to recommend things and to help people improve their understanding of who they are and what they are learning and what they can do. You see here on the right-hand side, a kind of an image of a kind of a report card that it gives you. It's not my favorite, but it's one of the things that we do within Alphy to help people understand how they are advancing themselves. I'm going to start with this talk has these 5 parts, and I'm going to start with AI can help human interaction. So AI can help humans communicate. If you look at what AI has been helping over the last while, it has been successful in various regards, although for a long time people believed it wasn't going to be reliable or predictable at interacting with people. In the 80s, it helped with investment opportunities and made people very rich. People like D.E. Shaw, who is a PhD student here. Online searches in the 1990s became a huge use of AI. E-commerce in the 2000s, and car safety began using it in many ways. Everything from representation and modeling of people's braking in ABS to other things as well. In fact, 10% of car fatalities come from driver technology overload. So this is there's books written about it, and in fact, my student Raul Rajan at Carnegie Mellon wrote a paper with me where we actually were able to use we tried 13 different biometrics and found one that could discover using it's a camera-based one, whether you're stressed fast enough that we were able to get people to stop making errors and in fact avoid crashes in our simulator or driving simulators. So AI can help in that way. If you notice the difference between that and the way that the autonomous vehicle direction's gone, my stuff tends to be about helping advance people as opposed to replacing them. If you give a person a fish, they fish tonight. If you teach a person how to fish, they fish for their life. And I think in general, there's an awful lot of issues. There's a lot of value in simplifying our life by doing things for us, but there's also some value in learning. And here we are at Stanford. So technology and disruption and frustrations have been part of many, many meetings. And one of my systems, Roger that we'll hear a little bit more about later, it found that if it says Ted Selker has entered the meeting, it actually is a disruption for everybody. So we've done some things to think about ways of improving how communication happens to people when they're interacting. And if you think about a meeting, it's actually human communication, interaction that the computer now is starting to mediate. So that's kind of interesting, is how we are moving from human-computer interaction to human-human interaction in our goals for a lot of the systems we make. So I stand here to tell you that automated feedback needs considerate systems. What is a considerate system? Well, a context-aware system is one that is aware of what you're doing and where you're doing it, using sensors and AI modeling. And AI modeling includes so many things we can use. I mean, today we use transformers. We used to use neural nets. We still do. Random forest support vector machines, hidden Markov models, common sense, rules. Rules are still a big deal. Knowledge representation has been part of expert systems, and a lot of time people say that stuff isn't cool. I have a lot of examples where simple methods of reasoning can be quite helpful. But in any case, my position is that systems are only helpful to people when they respond in socially appropriate ways. We have been living in a world where computers are egocentric and they expect us to understand everything they understand. We never do that with another person. We start off by trying to make them feel at ease that we're actually not going to be a pain. And so this idea of adding this element of empathy to the computer is something that I've been really focused on for decades. If you look at social contexts in which online tools help people, they have a long and illustrious and also bad background. Email were faster than letters, but flaming became a problem right off the bat at the very beginning. Flaming is when you are unfiltered and make dramatic statements. Stanford AI Lab, a few steps away from here, I built a system there where we used a common frame buffer where everybody could collaborate, and it supported an entire community of researchers working together with keystrokes intertwined. I think that we now do online is edit together, happened all the time there. But backing off to what happened with this communication, again, bulletin boards without monitors go dramatic. Just to give you an example, I was in the room when the CEO of IBM, a guy named Lou Gerstner, was being shown for the first time a bulletin board. And he typed in, "Hi, I'm Lou." And what came back was, "Hey, Lou, want a screw?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I knew they would be like that," which was, sad because they aren't only like that, but people want to be noticed. They want to make a presence of themselves, and they go dramatic. It isn't just the social media platforms, although they have been accused of bias towards and making dramatic silos. And they use all sorts of efforts now. Facebook spends a lot of energy trying to counter this. In fact, I heard through the grapevine, maybe it's not true, that they have 15,000 people trying to monitor Facebook right now. That's pretty crazy. Of course, they also have AI bots doing it too. But and if you go and you say, well, where has the green always represents in these lists places where things went well. So Schlumberger long ago started representing everything about a person, whether they'd taken a course, whether they dug a oil well, whether they whatever they'd done at Schlumberger. And they used this in an automated way to build teams to go off and do some consulting to build to make a oil well or something. And it was so important to them that they wouldn't share this software with anybody. So it's people's experiences helped them. It just seems quite natural right now, but when I first ran into this, it was a big fancy thing. Travel Roll is a prototype ride sharing system that I designed and actually published about, where it kept track of why it would expect that I and you, Dennis, would be okay in the car together, a little bit around when Uber was being formed. And then what was my need and your need that was coincident? So, I want to study French 3 times a week. It would notice, right? And so I also want to go to the ball game, and I live close to you. So maybe say, hey, why don't you guys go to the ball game? Find yourself speaking some French. Coach was a more complicated thing, which actually is still, believe it or not, sold in what used to be OS2. And what it it watches your demonstrated performance and experience and decides how to help you based on that, what help to give you in a hierarchy of abilities going from novice to expert. And people using it in my experiments produced 5 times as much code as people that didn't use it, including the same exact help information. So it was choosing. This was done, my PhD. It was done at a time when people believed that any AI in the user interface was going to be brittle and difficult. In fact, it competed beautifully. So how did I do that? Well, we can talk a little bit more about that. But Empathy Buddy is a system that weighs heavily on this talk, and I probably shouldn't be going through these in these detail, but it's all about making people aware of how they perceived as a communicator, and happy, sad, surprised, angry, emotions that the psychologists always talk about. It kind of put those up on the screen in pictorial form, and people reflected on the emails they were sending and actually changed them. So as I go on, I will just say that Roger that is another communication support system. Considered conference calling system is one. Alphy Recommend is, and these last 5 or 6 are all things I've built. But Alphy Reflect is the most current one, and it Alphy Recommend and Alphy Reflect, it previews how people how other people might interpret your contribution and makes you a little bit aware of that. So I will start my AI can help interactions story by saying that technology is inevitably used for social purposes. Everything people do is about other people. And I want to move on to we're always social actors. So AI can be considered. The question is, when am I doing something? Am I talking, doing something, or thinking? Timing for requests and response is kind of part of being considered, isn't it? You don't want to be talking over another person. How? Social rules of engagement, include that, maybe there should be 5 affirmations for one criticism. That's something people have talked about. Anyway, what does listening mean anyway? What? Peripheral. I'm aware that my PowerPoint might go down, the door might break, the projector might fall from the ceiling, but that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about these PowerPoint slides in front of me, and that peripheral stuff I'm able to keep out of my mind. Unfortunately, with egocentric computing, they tend to, as this one did, pop something up that I have to pay attention to, which isn't typically the way people interact with each other, unless they absolutely are falling down or something. Why? Appropriate responses are fundamental to social success. So there we are. So in fact, the first thing I wanted to talk about in social actors was that when we were communicating with a person, we use, nonverbal behavioral cues like their posture and their height and their gaze and their vocal behavior and their forward posture and their interpersonal distance and gesture and what they're saying. So they start with an intentional stance, they have social actions, and then we recognize the activity with, in this case, text, and then we have intention recognition, and finally we have a rational agent that does something. So that kind of circle is kind of what happens in a social dynamic. There's a couple of papers that are really nice about that stuff, and in fact, when we want to be considerate, we want to inform and negotiate a relationship. Stephen Pinker talks about that. Considerate systems have this appropriate social feedback. And in my case, I want to say using AI models of social context and user. And the point is to reduce effective load. You aren't going to be as worried about your emotional responses and reactions to each other because the information is pertinent and valuable, thoughtful and caring, receptive and reciprocal. Not distracting and disruptive and condescending and hostile and manipulative, right? So, okay, so somehow it had jumped to these 2 slides before, but this is a huge number of examples that I've made over the years to demonstrate some of these ideas and to explore them. And often what I've found in running experiments is that what I started off as a vision turned out to be a question. So for example, with Empathy Buddy up at the corner left, that funny, ugly face up there was the result of it not of people not responding at all very much when it was text that said surprised, angry, happy, sad. But with the picture, people responded very quickly. So the interface and the interaction in that interface is always critical to part of to going from the recognition and the interpretation to the action, as I was showing in that circle earlier. So as an example of reactions expressing intention, here's Andrea Lockhart. She's now a full professor at University of Texas in Austin, and Floyd Mueller is a professor. These are two of my students in Australia. And what they did is they went out with a couple of sensors on them. And one was a GSR, that's galvanic skin response. When you're upset, you sweat. Also, you sweat when a car honks a horn or when the cloud goes overhead. So that you see the galvanic skin response going up and down and up and down and up and down while they are filming. There's a video camera and she's filming people around Harvard Square, actually, right at that the red line entrance to the subway. And what we see is that she giggles these 4 times. And those gigglings correspond to somebody videotaping her, videotaping them, somebody playing drums in the street, etc. The point is that those are actual places where she was delighted by what she was videotaping. And so even though it seems like a very blunt piece of information, her voice was quite strong at indicating what she was interested in and what she was doing, much better than the biometric that people have been playing with at that stage. And so that was kind of exciting to me. In trying to understand social mistakes, just I'll give you an example of this study up here. We had somebody that was dominant. This represents that while there were 2 people were trying to work out a chess situation where there were three steps from a checkmate and they had to work together to solve this problem. This green person was doing all the communicating until we said
turn taking.
And that statement of turn taking made a precipitous drop in their dominance. And the person that wasn't speaking at all down here, we said to them,
Any thoughts?
and they immediately started collaborating at the same level as the person that had been dominant. And this is 5 minutes. Notice that, yeah, the dominant person gets a little more dominant, but not much. What's shocking to me is how that little intervention, verbal intervention, made a huge change in the relationship between these 2 people. Just to give you an example of that, Ted has entered the room. Here's 2 alternatives to Ted has entered the meeting.
John.
So that is a door opening and it's saying John. Notice that the error rate is very similar to Ted has entered the meeting above. Let's take a look at an alternative. This is me leaving the meeting.
John.
So we literally, by saying John as we leave the meeting and John as we enter the meeting, we're able to get half the errors in communications between people, not in people knowing whether he was there, but literally the mistakes people made in communicating with each other. So I've done a bunch of this, and some of it is in these papers, and more of it has crept into a system I've made called c3.chat. You're welcome to go online and try out this video conferencing system. I've more or less waiting to have the funding that it needs to go forward. But what it does in the meantime is it does make people aware of who's speaking and improves their ability to communicate, over not having interventions like that. And it uses AI to do that. It has this modeling. Another example of something I built that was, so in this case, what you see as a background is there was a desktop and it had a window open with a spreadsheet and a window open with your email, and a window open with text messaging, and a window open with an order form. And your job was to sit there for an hour and a half filling out orders, and you'd sometimes get a text message from somebody saying, "Hey, we're out of inventory," or "We've changed the pricing," or "By the way, you should take a break now." So some of it was social, and some of it was work related. And anyway, this up here, this box is kind of modeling the behavior, detection. And what we did is we would literally take text messages that came in and reorder them by whether they were about the same topic, whether they were about the topic you were operating with in your email or text or whatever window you're in, whether they were more important than the one in front of them, and we would delay them 0 to 2 minutes. Okay, 25% performance improvement, like that stayed. And we actually, anyway, there's a lot of work that can be done in this area. It's a very exciting area. Just imagine that if you don't disrupt people when they're doing something important, if it would matter to them, it would. Okay, and here is the empathy buddy that I was talking about. Quite proud of the fact that in 2019 it got a lasting impact award 20 years after it was published. But this is another thing, which is this weird ransom note, and this ransom note email system that we built. I say ransom note because it's got this orange and different size fonts, all these bars all over it, and all this stuff. It actually, when people had this feedback about whether this was somebody important for you to respond to, or this was something that was urgent, or whether this was somebody new, people, even though they looked at the same number of emails as a normal email system, they responded more appropriately. And what's especially important from my point of view about this is this was a little while ago. Our machine learning and our modeling wasn't so good. It was a graduate student working on it, whatever. Some of our machine learning was only 60 to 75% correct. So that means that the indicators in these awful colors wasn't even correct, and people still did better. Not only that, but you'd think that, maybe an email you'd want to respond to is green, and one, you shouldn't, would be orange. Oops, we made the opposite direction. We said the things that are orange are urgent. People still did better with it, and they still liked it better. So very interesting, lots of opportunity with user interface to take AI results, even when they are not perfect, and design fail-soft interfaces that improve people's success. Okay, so I've done lots of different things with thinking about feedback, and it's really, I guess I will just, I don't know. I guess I just want to point out that, okay, there's a couple things that, well, TrackPoint, you guys might know, is the pointing device in IBM's notebooks, or Lenovo's that I designed. And what was interesting about that is that by matching, it has a cognitive model of eye movement and handshake. And by matching the abilities of humans, we were able to get a 30% performance improvement over anybody's joysticks before. So that was pretty impressive. But, when we tried to make it learn, the most interesting part about it was that when it was learning to see how fast you could move your finger, the hardest thing was not to have it learning about you and you learning about it. So if it changes and you change, if they get out of phase, you end up with something that's terrible. And one thing that we found out in the 1980s was, before the 1980s, all phones had what's called side tone. Side tone is that when you're talking, it puts some of your voice in the earpiece so you can hear that you're talking. Well, for a while, cell phones took that away, and people get stressed when they don't have side tone. I believe people get stressed when they don't have side tone in other regards too. I'm relying on you looking at me intently, saying, "Oh my God, I'm not completely off base in my way of communicating. I'm not wearing a frog on my head or whatever." But we do find ourselves looking at ourselves in Zoom and staring at our face. Why? Because we want to know we're actually succeeding at, especially with Zoom. Who knows? You might disappear at communicating with others. The other thing I want to say is that constructive feedback is a very dangerous thing, and I guess I will leave you with when we were making a car that was trying to improve your driving by giving you feedback. We had two knobs on the dashboard, one for affirmations and one for criticisms. And when we gave people any criticisms at all, they made more errors driving, any criticisms. And it was funny is they didn't recognize it. Yes?
I just was wondering, Ted, I don't want to interrupt too much, but I see here for both Emacs and Gmail, text completion. You spell correction in some cases.
Yes.
Which is in many cases for the person typing.
Of course it is.
Erroneous.
Yeah, that's right. So what's interesting here is a guy named George Heidorn in graduate school came up with this whole legibility improvement for writing. And he turned it loose on some, young writers, not you. You're a very professional writer. A lot of professional writers hate these things, but in fact, they would have been the center of a huge industry, Grammarly and so on. And so, now we have even things like Gmail and Emacs that do text completion. Thank you for the invitation, right? It's going to add those words after. Another system that we all watched was something that would dance on the screen when it thought you needed help. People didn't like Clippy. Yeah, exactly. And the thing with Bob, or Clippy as it became known later, was, in my mind, it popped up. One of the worst things for an eye is something popping up over there because it makes your eye drag over there. It's a physiological response. Second thing is that it would talk about why. It wouldn't talk about how. And so it would tell you why, this is used for this purpose because it didn't know quite how to do that. And the third thing about it is that it would take your eye away from whatever text you were editing, which again was a disruption. So I kind of was bragging at the time. The same time, Coach came out in what was called Smart Guides. Unfortunately, the Clippy got lots more attention because, well, they sold, maybe, orders of magnitude more Microsoft product than we sold OS2. But when I was, another thing that I did with Coach, I talked about a little earlier, which was recognizing your level of expertise and experience, is you see this cover and you see through and you see this magnifying glass. That is where Coach is literally thinking about graphical syntax on a graphical user interface and helping you step by step through it with novice, intermediate, professional, or expert script. And you can go off the script and it changes what it thinks you're going to do, whatever it has to say, how, you see how barely there. Maybe I'll make it bigger. It's going to put very close to where you're working. So that was kind of what it did, and I'm still proud of it. Alphy Reflect kind of takes human communication to another level. It uses these faces and iconic symbols and short texts to make you aware of how maybe somebody else will see you. So if you said something like, "This is great," it's going to have this smile and it's going to say positive. Okay, so that's just reacting to your speaking. And so here we are, where so much of this industry has gone about legibility. I'm thinking about tone, sentiment, and semantics. And we had that one saying, "This is great." We have, "This is a perfect way to think about this." We give a deferent. That's we call that deferent. It's a thank you for this. This is a hot topic. Is a more neutral response. So we're constantly deciding whether and how to give you feedback. And when we started building this system, it was kind of thinking, how do we get beyond shame, blame, and complain? We started off by saying, when somebody would say something like, "Women are not inspiring," it'd have this grimace. It's a terrible thing to say. And so then, maybe it's too edgy, very, very, negative. "Women are not intelligent." Again, women are not haters. It would be happy. That is very complicated to understand. Through 12 rounds of design, of thinking hard about what would be a reasonable feedback, we came up with, first we came up with terrible ideas. Like we had this making women and men equal. We thought we'd put them on a scale. Now we have their heads on a platter. It's a very bad idea. And we've come to things that are much simpler. So Men are dumber is, of course, a sexist statement. So we have this image of women and men together being equal, and the word inclusive. You're too old for that. We really love the idea of the sad part about being a kid is they don't give you the good tools till you're 32, and then when you're 53, they take them away again. So there's a lot of ageism that goes on in this world, and we kind of have this young woman and this older person holding hands. So are you too old for this job? Choosability, not age. This is our little commentary, and our pictures of the man, the young woman, and the old woman holding hands. Am I making sense? Well, that's kind of a roundabout way. Maybe we should be straighter with our text and just say, is this clear? So those are some examples of how it responds. And you can go to alphyco.com and you can find out more about it. You can also go to your to the Play Store or the Apple Store and download it for your phone and play with it there. And where this Alphy Reflect comes to play is when you are posting or commenting on some piece of content or sending a text to somebody else in the app. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is how we did this with machine learning. And AI's trajectory used to be knowledge-based engineering, and we used to talk about knowledge being power, but it did lots of things in the 80s. It drove factories, made complex things work, configured R2, R3, R2 configured computers. It had linguistic models and medical models and logistical models. An example is there was this system at SRI that would configure where to put things like porta potties and tents and things in a bunch of airplanes that are going to fly them into some remote area. And they had a simulation that took 4 or 5 hours on a big supercomputer to configure these 22 airplanes. I guess they called it a battalion or something. And no one used it. And people would just shuffle paper around on a table as a group to decide where they're going to put things in the airplane, until some friends of ours made this rule system that said, hey, you put the heavy things under the wings and you put the things that are going to slide around where you can tie them down, and if you're gonna let them come out of the airplane on parachutes, you load them a little differently than if you're going to have them come off on forklifts. And guess what? In 1 minute, it's a long time ago, it would configure this whole airplane, all these airplanes, and then you would interact with it and move some things that you didn't like where they were, and then it would run another iteration. And immediately, most of the people doing that kind of work converted to using it. So the user interface with the reasoning system made a system that worked with people and computers working together using AI reasoning and representation. The trouble with that approach we ran into with Psych. Psych is a system that's been going for, 40 years at this point. They have a really great model of the Suez Canal in the Middle East, and they have lots and lots of other things that they've modeled. And the problem is that it's done by hand, and there's a problem with consistency. And in fact, even for small models, there are trade-offs in when something is true, and it gets very complicated to have something that's reliable and consistent. And Gödel's theorem says that you can't really do it all. So it runs out of power. It gets very complex, and 40 years down the road, Psych is not the dominant AI system we're using. So did multi-layer networks save us? Absolutely. Before we had multi-layer neural networks, people thought that maybe we couldn't do a good enough job at learning with neural networks. I actually did my undergraduate thesis and master's thesis to show that I thought it would work, but that's a long time ago. So the thing that's interesting is, what do you do to decide? How do you just throw a bunch of modeling, this machine learning at a problem? You got a big data set today. That's what we all have. And the fact is, John Lamping, who worked with Greg Hinton and a bunch of other people making the AI systems at Google, says you got to eyeball it first, right? You have to have an intuition. You have to understand the topic area. You have to understand reasoning about it, or you will not be able to design an AI system. And people say, oh, no, he does it really well. Well, most of the people that you have work on image understanding with machine learning did it at another company first, did it at another university first. So we really are at a point where we don't quite understand, but we do know that representation matters. It might not be encoded explicitly in our machine learning things. But anyway, that's my little rant about that. But in Alphy Reflect, we've got some things to distinguish that surprised us. So we started off thinking, oh, sorry. Whenever a person says sorry, we start off with a very simple model. Sorry was an apology, and apologies are no good. So sorry to bother you versus sorry for your loss. So an apology is not what that is. That is empathy. So we modeled it incorrectly for a while. We got confused between sex and sexist. You'd say woman and all of a sudden it would think it was sexist. We thought, you'd say black and all of a sudden it wouldn't think it would be racist, not racial. So this becomes very interesting. And if you look at this huge array here, forgive me for not changing views. I just don't want my system to blow up again. What you see here is us thinking about how so many different ratings of these sentences that we put together as our training sets, there were thousands of them now, relate to these different aspects that we're trying to look at. We're looking at racist and sexist and ageist and confident and happy and sad, and anyway, there's a bunch of them. And when you do stuff like that, you start with training data, you do supervised learning, and then you can use adversarial networks too, but you got to evaluate the interpretations and the performance and rethink the classification. Let's say we have built the AI system for Alphy 4 times at least that I can name, literally changing and upgrading our techniques each time. We started with the one shots, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But anyway, after you're reassembling the results, when you have this huge bunch of classifiers all over the floor, then what do you use? In the bad old days, we used to use blackboards. Very proud of blackboards. Use them in lots of my AI systems. That is that there's these results, and they're all vying for which one believes more that it's the answer. And that's a really great way to go, except that it's kind of a single, it's making a single decision. And what we find is very complex blackboards with different parts to them, and then we end up with Bayesian nets where all of these knowledge experts that come back with machine learning results can fight over which state they are in a network, and then what the result should be. Well, that's all fine and good, but in fact, we can actually do other things, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So we started off with some direct matching. Sorry I bothered you. We found ourselves looking for the word sorry. Very nice. It worked for a great demo. And then we tried to use other people's models, Hugging Face, Spacey, and so on. But they're trained for different reasons and different kinds of corpuses and different points of view about what hate means and what all various things that they've trained for mean. And so we found ourselves stumbling a little bit, and then we tried to say, okay, we can use these beautiful little pithy training data sets with one-shot learning, and it's hard to get nuance. What we found is multi-label learning is a much deeper way of looking at the relationships between the training sets, as well as reducing the performance problems that you get by outsourcing to other people's systems. So we found ourselves owning much more and more of the machine learning till now. It's all done in-house. And yeah, so in the end, we have to decide when we're going to respond to a person with considered systems. Do we know enough to comment? Are we going to say something affirming, ambiguous, or negative? As I said, negative is a really dangerous thing to do. It's very easy to want to do it. In fact, all of our responses at the beginning were, we're very easily kind of, giving people when you say something sexist, why not let a person know that's sexist? Don't say it. Well, actually, as you saw, we turned it around and we try to say, be inclusive, right? It's timely and short and simple. So when I taught a class, I taught the AI class here once a long time ago, and I had a bunch of people make these help systems, and it was great. We had 60 of them. And the biggest value that I learned from that was it didn't matter how much AI was in it. It mattered if it could respond fast enough for a person to use the information while they were thinking about it. If they had to wait for it, the system worked worse. And so timely is important, short is important, and simple is important. Those three things, lessons I keep learning over and over again. I try to think about things not being distracting, either in visual or auditory ways. I think that a lot of the systems we build try to put words in people's mouths. When it completes things for me, it's nice, saves me time, but it's also not very polite for me to put words in your mouth. And I don't know whether it's going to come back and bite us, but it's something that I'm thinking about. And really the thing that I like to talk about is assistive versus advisory agents. So an advisory agent is one that that teaches you and gives you a suggestion. An assistive agent does it for you. Self-driving car versus a car coach that teaches you to drive better. So if you lose subtlety, you can stop people's thinking if you push them too hard in any direction. It can be just, pushing people too hard or telling them something they should say can be disturbing, and it makes them feel like they're losing agency. We all spend a lot of our lives hoping that we have enough, personal power to be respected by ourselves and others. And then there's this whole idea of side tone. That is realizing that I am actually succeeding at communicating. Those are some of the reflective principles that I've come up with. And anyway, it's 5:30, and I just wanted to end exactly on time and say that that we've been building this social network, learning network to support women. And it probably will care about other people besides women at some point. But also this idea of communication reflection, I think, is a broader topic than just what we're doing in the app. And anybody that's interested, I'd be delighted to talk to you about ways that this stuff can go forward and be useful as a technology. So thank you very much. And I leave you with the 4 traits of Alphy are optimism, ambition, bravery, and kindness. And that was another thing we thought of, is that instead of just having a simple yes, no, we wanted to give people a direction, a vector about what would it mean to give people feedback that was not just bad or good, but took you in a different direction. So thank you very much for attending, and I open any questions.
We have time for questions.
Yes, we do.
And if you have a question and you're on the net, you just unmute yourself and ask the question. Identify who you are. Oh, yeah. I was going to wait till after the questions. That's all right. Are there other questions out there?
Nothing?
Nothing yet.
So I have 2. One's a fairly short yes or no, and the other one is slightly more detailed because. No, seriously. I mean, I driving to Seattle. I had a good time talking about this. When you mention women here, are you including trans women?
I'm included. Well, we're all about inclusiveness.
Okay. No, I mean, there's women who do not include trans women as women. So I just.
I've had lots of people work with me that are all every shade of the gender.
Right. I just wanted to know how you stood on that line.
It's not a line. It's a spectrum.
Well, I mean, from the standpoint of a voting balance, it's not actually. But-
On voting, I don't think that anyone
No,
cares
it's
about your
not-
gender when
not
you're
in this
voting.
case, certainly. But my second one, in terms of most of the examples I think you showed have a particular component of what we would call interest that a lot of people would have. And when I started talking to other people a couple decades back about when Feigenbaum was pushing expert systems.
Yes, he was. The
and-
fifth generation.
And yes, not only that too, but I mean, actually, at the last Open Computer Forum, Ed stood and he apologized for expert.
Oh, that's very interesting. But there's probably a question here.
Yes, no, the question is this actually, because you are attempting to do basically artificial compassion and, you know, some degree of empathy
Yes.
for the system of both machine and people to somebody who might need help. And I thought that a good example that might need to be painted would be something like what we would call social worker. So we have the EDD up in Sacramento, and they have to make a decision. How do they know? How does a person know whether or not somebody is actually trying to gain the welfare system or not? That you hear this story, and you know, I get emails all the time. You know, where in fact, you know, I get the word sorry as an example. You know, medical problems, as an example, injury, and you know.
You're a patient or you're part of EDD?
No, not well. The person.
I'm just talking about the emails you're getting.
Right. EDD has this person or this problem that they have, that they only have so much personnel, yet they have this flood of people, especially during the pandemic, and they have to make, and you know, that's at the state level.
What does EDD stand for?
Employment development,
Okay.
You know, and of course at the national level, at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, there was this dispersal of money, and a fair number of people, not the majority certainly, you know, did multi-million-dollar scams on the federal disbursement of funds. But at the same time, at the lower level, there were smaller people in real need, and determining what the availability of the need was, the amount of funds to disperse. How can you? I mean, do you have some things to think about?
Yeah, there's all sorts of questions there.
Right.
So number one, there's sensing. You have to understand what you know, whether a person's being truthful or not, and whether they are making a good argument or not, and whether their argument actually represents a need that is real. So those are three different things that we have to measure. And we don't have the personnel because we think we can do it a better, simpler way. That's fine. So I don't think that that's actually. I don't actually, it doesn't bother me that it takes a lot of people to figure out if people have needs. I think it's worth figuring out whether people have needs. But in fact, yes, there are things we can do to automate things like that. I think that the part, you know, so there's the parts about measuring it and sensing it and everything like that. But the part that I'm really caring about mostly in my career is about the part that people aren't doing, which is how do you even communicate with a computer? How do you communicate with another person using a computer to support you? In every social situation we are in now, there is also a phone. Often there's a phone that's listening for a question even. Do you want to find out when the baseball game starts? I mean, you know, and you just, you know, it just, and then all of a sudden it'll pop up in the middle of your conversation and say, you know, when it's going to start. The question is whether that's appropriate or not. And I think that we have spent way too little. We've spent a lot of time thinking, oh, can we do a better job of sensing and detecting and finding people that are cheating and this and that and that. Yeah, that's the field that has, you know, 10 million people working on it. The one about trying to make people feel more comfortable, work together better, that's not very big at all. And so that's kind of what I'm standing up here saying. I want computers to be agentic. I want them to work better with people. And still, I will say, you know, with regard to your question, which you deserve an answer anyway. Yeah, I mean, people, you know, the computers modeling of these conversations is getting better and better, and yet you see Facebook, who has to do this for a living or die, figure out whether people are truthful or not. They have, you know, an army of people and an army of bots, and I think that this collaboration between computers and machines, people, is the most fun thing we have. We always have been playing with machines and collaborating with with each other using, whether it's a saw that has two handles or whatever. We're collaborating with another person, and that will continue. And I want to celebrate that. I want to celebrate the integration of using computers for what they're good for, and to have them communicate with people in a way that makes people succeed better and feel better about themselves and each other.
In other words, say augmentation.
Yeah,
What is it, Doug?
no, I'll call it learning.
Okay.
Okay, so the augmentation, is Marvin Minsky, one of my dearest friends until he passed. Was hoping for, augmentation or replacement. I'm just hoping to have a good life. And it's getting hard because we got supercomputers in our phone, in our pockets, that are distracting us enough that we are falling off the Taj Mahal when the phone knows exactly where we are. There's no reason that phone couldn't have stopped us from falling off the Taj Mahal.
Well, we could discuss more of this at dinner. You want to ask me?
Any question?
No,
Anybody online?
Wait, you have a question?
Just
Oh.
like concerning the scope of this app, it's just communication, right? Like how we are communicating with people,
Well,
or is it also something beyond that?
Oh, no, it is much beyond that. Alfie is a basically a best-selling author. Julian Guthrie started this company, and she wrote a book called Alpha Girls, and it was about women that did really well. And when she goes around giving talks about it, she started recognizing that there was an awful lot of people that weren't getting ahead because they had glass ceilings of various sorts. And so she thought, wouldn't it be cool to make an app that would support women advancing? And what she did, because it's her wheelhouse, is she got some of the best writers in the world to write articles, make videos about, what's it mean to pivot? That's changing kind of job you're in. What inspirational women, that have done things, gone to space, gone down to the bottom of the sea, whatever. And she has articles about them, articles by them, videos about them. There's talks that happen several times a week that are supposed to be inspiring. There's a game you can play that kind of makes you think about a person that's inspiring. There's a social network you can create between people to talk about whatever you want to and relative to advancing your, feeling better about your chances and working towards it. There's even things to help you think about how to get better jobs. So there's an awful lot. It's thousands of pieces of content in it, and there's little lessons. We might call them hacks. So it's quite a robust platform, and I welcome everybody to try it. I was just talking about one little corner of it that's got a lot of attention. This way of watching a person communicate and improving their communication. And I'm talking about it because it's a very direct experiential thing that works with whatever content you're working with. So that's different from the typical stuff, which we have a lot of in Alfie. That is stuff that's appropriate for the person that wants to learn about how women can succeed. And that stuff is and especially interesting to me is that I think that there's very little well-written stuff about ageism. And that's something we focused on that I think is interesting to the world, but it's also been under people don't know what to do with it. And so we're exploring that, as well as other things about these issues. So no, thank you for that question. And yes, please.
So you said that you worked on this expertise recognition system that kind of takes your experiences and tells you how your
Expertise, yeah.
So let's say I'm using the app and I'm like, hey, I want to pivot. And I give the app a bunch of my experiences. Is it going to give me a plan, give me an idea on how to pivot and what to do?
Sure. I mean, it could give a PERT chart, and it could give you and show you how to do this and then that and the other thing. No, what it does is it uses what it watches you do. By watching you, it learns your expertise and experience. Yes, you can fill out a profile, but mostly our idea is that we watch what you're interested in, how you interact with it, what comments you make, and then we suggest other content. And there's a For Me page, which is a list of all the things we hope we've thought through well enough and reasoned well enough to know would be useful to you. And so that's the idea.
How does the app watches like our activity on our phone? Or-
Yes, our activity while using this app. Okay, so it's not just collecting, it's not just swiping up everything about you in the world. You know, it's not scraping your Facebook. I mean, maybe that'd be interesting, but it'd probably be intrusive. So what we're doing is we're watching how you interact with our app. You know,
So,
yeah. Is there any more? Okay.
so anyhow,
Nobody's raised their hand out there?
nobody's raised.
They're all busy eating
they're all-
dinner.
They're probably eating dinner or something. But, you know, it's always amazing what you get yourself into.
Who?
You.
Oh, me.
But this is probably, I think, the most interesting AI talk I've heard in a long time.
Oh, thank you so
And the
much.
reason for it is that it's simple and practical, and it'll have a fairly high impact.
Well, thank you. I think that it's practical, and I actually believe there's some theoretical underpinnings that you know will seem easy to us afterwards, but have been coming 50 or 60 or 80 years. And that's the interesting thing, is that the modeling the people's response is a worthy task in my view.
Yeah, but I think that it points out something which I've begun to believe, but I'm not really willing to tell anybody I do, and that is, I'm not certain that all of our concern about privacy and information is in the long run a practical choice.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if we're going to collaborate and cuddle up with these machines, and it's going to help us, they have to be able to know a lot of stuff about us. And if we try to keep ourselves private and secret, and you don't share it across a little community, you don't get the benefit.
Yeah. So I think it's really an interesting topic of where is privacy come and go in society. And you think about, you know, maybe you could imagine Adam and Eve sitting around a fire and then they want to get some privacy. So they go behind a rock, right? And they get together. And so then they, you know, say, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we could do that anytime from any direction? And they build a little hut, right? And so all of a sudden they're in the fireplace with everybody else very much. And then they get lonely, right? And they invite people over to their hut. Pretty soon the front door is open and everyone's hanging out in the hut. And so they have to get a cottage next to the river or something. But you know, we have these things where we love having a lawn and we love being in a community, and then we put up fences between our yards, and then we find ourselves never getting to play with the kids next door. And I remember going, you know, just delivering somebody that had been, doing some labor to a community in Mountain View, which had this huge apartment complex, and everyone was jammed together, and there's a little swimming pool between everybody, and the kids are just running all over the place. All the doors are open. Everybody's playing together. And I was thinking, you know, my kid was with me. He says, why can I play here? And I said, well, we have to ask, you know, but it probably. And the point being that, you know, there's a lot lost in privacy, that you know, there's a lot to learn by being with other people.
Well, I think that part of the problem, unfortunately, is the Caucasian population of the United States.
Is that a sexist statement? Yeah.
No, it's
Okay.
a racist statement.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Southern California where we had fences, and one of the first things you learn when you're at least a boy at the time is you learn how to climb a fence. And that's something Steve Crocker at UCLA was noted for very early on the ARPANET, as an example. Climbed over transoms to get to access. But the thing is, I think one of the things that surprised me on my first business trips to the East Coast was the number of communities that really they did not have fences. You know, your next door neighbor was actually fairly close by, and you know, you shared certain things in common. But that was not the case in Southern California. Now, Southern California.
Well, anyway, but we digress.
Yeah, at the time though, we had more space. And when I talk to people about privacy, well, first off, I do kind of ascribe to McNeely's privacy stick it over kind of thing, okay? But I'll play both sides. The people who really understand privacy, actually, if you want to meet people who really know privacy, my suggestion is go visit the Hopi Reservation in Arizona. They understand privacy, you know. And one of the things you don't do, you don't take pictures of the Hopi. Okay, why? Because they think you're stealing their soul.
Yeah.
They really do. And they have a particular point. The problem that we have in our society is, you want to have a limited controlled space, but then at the same time, though, you want to get out your message in order for you to help your economic interest and the like. And I face, a lot of people just assume that, hey, I'm an extension of the white race. But when I go to a Native American or First Nations reservation, I hear very different conversations than if I had a Caucasian friend.
I mean, race aside, everybody has this situation I was describing, which is this tension between whether to share or whether to keep to themselves. And because we're social animals, eventually people need to be around other people for lots of reasons. And in fact, privacy cannot be complete, and and yet sharing can't be complete. And I think that those are real issues. And I mean, I remember when Google was a one-story building, and I used to go visit my friends over there, and I just walk in the door and it was open, and just sit down and hang out and go to and have food. And
me too. I had the same thing. I knew Larry and Sergey in their top ramen phase.
But they can't do that as easily now.
No, they can't. They have to have bodily security with them 24 hours a day. Bill Gates.
I don't know. I hope not.
Guest key. No, they do. I definitely know that they have to keep this. Very similar to the Pelosians.
Anyway, yes, I know.
Yeah. My suggestion, though, is I think we should probably, unless you have something to add.
I don't.
And one more shout out if anybody online has some.
I think we should, observe.
I think we don't have anyone.
Let's change this.
Let's call this a day. Thank you very much. This is a great talk.
Oh, thank you.